Okay. I think we're in. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see if the stats are looking good. How is the delay, I wonder? Dum 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 dum.
Well, today Pope Francis sent a
Looks like we got a vote. Any interest? I got a Discord open if you want to join. We can talk about it. I'm curious why you don't believe in God, if you ever did as a kid and you lost your faith, or if there was an argument that convinced you, or what you're even doing here. You interested in proving me wrong? I will. I will drop that Discord link if you're interested. Feel free to join that. I'd much prefer to talk about it in person, but I'm happy to respond to your comments here. No one can prove God isn't real. You are making the claim God is real, so you have to prove it. Well, I think that's somewhat debatable because you're making the claim that God isn't real. Well, at least most atheists are. Okay, but if you want some arguments and you want some evidence and proofs, then I will provide some for you. For instance, have you heard of the Cosmological argument? I understand we're working on a delay here, so it's kind of tough. That's why I'd love if you join the Discord. It'd be way, way easier to talk, like, at the same time. Again, that link's right there. I swear it's... I'm a real guy. I'm not trying to steal any information. That's just a Discord link. Love to have you in there. Even if you're just going to join and use the text chat, it would just make it so there's no delay. That's all. Okay, you may have heard of the Cosmological argument. So I'll present it to you just in case you aren't totally caught up on it. Basically, it relies on two premises, and it's a deductive argument. So if those two premises are true, then the conclusion necessarily follows. Okay, so the two premises are, premise number one, everything that begins to exist has a cause, like the cause of you is your father, the cause of a tree is a seed, the cause of the earth is gravitic forces pulling matter together to create the earth. You understand. Everything has a cause that begins to exist. Premise number two is the universe began to exist. Space, time, and matter began to exist. And the conclusion that follows from that is that the universe has a cause. Okay, do you disagree with any of those premises? Or do you believe that the universe does indeed have some kind of cause? No, I'm not assuming that. I'm not going there yet. I'm not getting to that yet. I'm just wondering if you agree with the formulation of the cosmological argument. It actually doesn't say anything about God per se yet. It just says, do you agree that the universe at one time began and that everything that begins has a cause? No, I don't know what, well, I have a probability. I have a educated guess about what caused it all, but I'm not saying I know what caused it all just because of this argument. But if it seems like you agree, because you just don't know what caused it, but you agree that there is a cause of the universe. So let's think about what that is. Well, if it created space, it must be spaceless, right? There was no space when that thing was hanging out, whatever caused the universe. I'm not saying it's a god or a thing. Right now you could still assume it's some sort of like equation ticking away, right? Or like a multiverse theory or something like that, right? Yeah, I understand, Dave. I understand. Don't flip out on me. If there was a cause. Okay, so you think it's possible it doesn't have a cause. What would that look like? Is that like an infinite regress, like an infinite universe or infinite multiverses or something? Because that would still be a cause, right? I just want you to answer the question. I'm not trying to trap you or anything. I'm trying to have a discussion. I know. Well, that's why do you want to join this Discord? There's a Discord link for you. We can talk. It'll be way easier. I definitely prefer that. I know there's a weird delay as well, so. Okay, well, if you don't know what or if there was a cause, are you saying it's possible for something to exist that doesn't have a cause? Oh, I see. I understand. You're working. Okay, well, we can keep doing it like this if you're okay with it. So is there anything that can possibly exist, even in your imagination, that has no cause? Anything material, by the way. excluding God, the uncaused cause, beginning, no end, existing infinitely, eternally. I agree that there could be, but again, that would have to be something infinite, right? Something uncaused, something eternal. Like if it has no cause, it must have necessarily always existed, right? Right. I think you agree with me. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell by the typing. But something that has no cause must be infinite, right? It must have, like, nothing started it, nothing created it or led to its. It just must be, right? Okay, thank you. For the sake of argument, I'm not saying you agree with this. Let's just say there is a cause, right? Okay. So, if there's a cause of space and time and matter, what do we know about that cause? Like, and by I mean a true cause to space and time and matter. I'm not saying like, oh, there was some matter and then it turned into this matter. I'm talking about tracing everything back. Well, it must be spaceless because it created space. It must be timeless because it created time. And it must be extremely powerful because it created everything in the universe, right? That we see. So we're moving closer to God. This isn't going to take us all the way there, but we can see how there's something vast and huge and sort of ununderstandable that must have caused the physical universe. Are you following me so far? I agree that it's okay not to know. I'm just saying it's better to know. If there's something to know, wouldn't it be better to know it than not to? If there's something to know. I'm just trying to take you on a journey of argumentation, of logic. I'm not trying to trick you or take you anywhere that isn't real, anywhere that isn't verified. Again, I didn't come up with any of this. This is all from theologians and philosophers and other people. It's much, much smarter than me. So let me restate the question. Do you follow that any cause of the universe must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial? Okay, sure. Okay, that's good. I like this. This is way better than the last time I tried to do this. Okay. So, what is the nature of that thing? Is it like an equation ticking away, like an infinite equation ticking away? Or is it a big white guy with a big white beard in the sky and a lightning bolt? And I understand you don't know. I'm just taking, it's sort of a rhetorical question. I'm presenting all the options that we seem to have before us, right? Could be some kind of multiverse. Could be something like that. Okay. Now, if the cause of the material universe, the cause of space and time itself, were like some sort of equation where like x always equals y if z is true or something like that, then I don't think you would expect to see the creation of the universe. See if you follow me here on this. Okay, so if the universe was created by some sort of like impersonal law, yes, I realize I'm asking things that are not known, but that's why we're trying to figure them out. These are not going to be scientific proofs. That's not possible, right? Because we're talking about immaterial things. We're talking about metaphysics. So they're going to be metaphysical proofs, right? It's about probability. It's about what is more likely. Answer A, like only the material universe exists and everything came about by the bumping of atoms and molecules together and maybe by some mysterious cosmic soup beforehand or something like that. We're trying to see what you think. Like we're trying to place you in a camp so that you have a better view of reality, of your existence, and even possibly for the reason for your existence once we get there. So if it's a cosmic soup and it's just like universal laws that are just ticking away endlessly, infinitely. We can talk about why infinity can't exist in materiality, but let's get there in a sec. Then would we expect the Big Bang to happen ever? I'm not so sure. Because one thing, imagine it's a law like, okay, so if X happens, then Y universe is created, right? That kind of sounds like if the temperature is below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, then the water will freeze, right? Oh no. Oh no, we got comic, but get ready, David. We got this fucking guy back. Okay, what's up, Comic Brandon? Welcome back. Are you ready to have a good time? Are you ready to be chill? You're not going to insult people? All right, let's get back into it. David is very open-minded. You might learn a thing from David. You can see what his comments are like. They're mellow. They're going along with the argumentation. David and I have already determined that that if there is a cause of the universe, which, we're not totally sure, but I think, given the cosmological argument, everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Yeah, I agree with David. Let's not insult. Then the universe has a cause, right? So we're talking about what kind of cause that could be. Well, if it created physicality, if it created material, it created space and time, it must be without those things. It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial in order to create them, because they didn't exist and then they exist. So whatever was before them is not those things, right? You did help me fix my stream, actually. I gotta be honest. David, I wish you could see how Comic Brandon was reacting in the last time we did this. Okay. So, spaceless, timeless, immaterial. Does the God have a personality? Or is it a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, like cosmic soup or something, right? Like an equation that takes away. Well, it can't really be an equation, right? Unless the equation can change itself. Because either X necessitates Y or it doesn't, right? Like, so if Am I losing everybody? Am I getting way too... Maybe we can do a different way. How about the fine-tuning of the universe? How about that? Fine-tuning. We agree that there's a cause for the universe. Have you heard about the fine-tuning argument, David? Basically, the fine-tuning argument goes, you've probably heard this like in elementary school or on Reddit or something like that. Like if the Earth were 100 feet closer, or like 0.00001% closer to the sun than it is, its orbit, then life would not be possible. No life would have ever started. The Earth either would have been way too hot or way too cold. You know that, yeah. Okay. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions. My internet, is it still dropping? No, I haven't dropped a single frame, so don't bullshit me, Brandon. So there are thousands of scenarios like this that would have made life, and especially consciousness, impossible to start without some sort of outside force impacting that. Do you agree with that? Again, I would love if Brandon or someone could hop into the Discord, which I'll post again, because that would be way easier. Okay, good. But do you disagree with the fine-tuning argument, Brandon? What is your argument against the fine-tuning of the universe? I mean, how do you look at the universe as ordered and perfect and structured as it is, coming from seemingly chaos? How do you explain how everything just works perfectly? How would I know what? That the universe, that life would not be possible without thousands of different mini things going on? Like thousands of precise, exact, momentary perfections? It's a pretty well accepted scientific fact. I could pull up a few. Why do I breathe through the same hole I eat? Well, it's pretty efficient, isn't it? It seems to work out. It doesn't work perfectly. Life doesn't propagate everywhere we look at it. All planets aren't perfectly round. The Earth isn't the exact distance it needs to be from the sun with the exact orbit you need. Here, let's, okay, this will be easier because there's lots of proofs for the fine tuning. So let's use our best friend, ChatGPT. Oh, shite, my Stream Deck's not working. Let me switch to desktop. All right, there you guys are. How do you know it's fine-tuned? Yeah, there's so much that's not designed and clearly just happened. I don't see anything that's not designed and just happened. If you could explain to me something that did, that'd be a good place to start. But everything exists on this knife's edge, this like absolute razor thin line of where the probability is that nothing should exist, right? So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give 10 examples. And that's not even all of them. Oh, shit. Well, I mean, I'm going to say designed. You're going to say it evolves. But you know what I mean. I mean, it's just that the probability is ridiculous that these things would just happen. That atoms bumping into each other and maybe a few laws at the beginning of time would allow everything to happen. So here's 10, and ChatGPT could keep going, I guarantee you. So the 10th one they give is what the one I gave, the sun's distance from the earth, the habitable zone. Right. So what are the odds of that? Very low. The oxygen ratio in Earth's atmosphere. Too much oxygen. Got it. Like it's the perfect amount for there not to be fires and for there to be animal life. This is an interesting one. The universe started in an extreme low entropy state. What does that mean? Okay, wait, let's bring your comments back so we can... Okay. Things do exist, so the probability is 100%. No, not true. Not true. Because if a single one of these things were different, which they easily could have been if there's no God or no creator or no designer, then nothing would exist. Nothing would exist. David, can you explain to me Comic Brandon's argument here that I'm presupposing nothing? I don't think I've ever once said that nothing exists. Like, I don't know where he keeps getting that from. Doesn't matter the odds. The odds of life on Earth are 100%. Low entropy does not equal nothing. There is no... I agree low entropy does not... Low entropy means the opposite of nothing. It means there's order. Entropy is chaos. The opposite is order. So how could the universe start in an ordered state without some outside force ordering it? Like, does your room ever just clean itself? Your room, if you leave it for like 3 weeks, will be in a high entropy state. The only way to get it to a low entropy state is to put in energy from outside, your conscious energy, your, like, I guess consciousness. So why would we think the universe is any different? And Comic Brandon, literally, I'm going to ignore you because we're going to do this all day again. I've never said that nothing existed, like in the way that you're accusing me of. This is like some weird straw man that I don't know where you're getting it from. The odds of things existing are 100%. We don't know how it all started. Again, it's okay not to know. Yes, my room was never dirty. Dirty does not exist. Okay, well, if you don't believe in the most basic things, then we're definitely not going to agree about God. But back to David, who is more genuine. I agree it's okay not to know, but you must agree that if there's something to know, it would be better to know it than not to. So we have to at least think about if there's something to know. And the odds of things existing are not 100%, as you can see right here. These are 10 things where if a single one of these was slightly different, then nothing would exist at all. So how, in what way are you saying the probability is 100%? Like some of these things are not even, like they're not even law. Like, okay, so the first few are like the strength of gravity, fine. So just assume that like the strength of gravity is one of these inherent laws of the universe. Of course, you'd have to explain to me how it's inherent, where it came from, what the causal chain, like what caused that to happen. But forgetting that, like some of these are just, like they clearly don't have to be the case in our universe. The ratio of electron to proton mass, the oxygen, I mean, when it comes to the Earth, that clearly does not have to be the case because there's 8 other planets that's not the case. So if anything, at least on Earth, it's like a 1 in 8 chance. It's definitely not 100%. And then you add in all the other stuff, and it turns out it's basically a 1 in infinity chance, but okay. You were calling life bacteria. Would your God agree my room was ever dirty? Brandon, I'm not doing this with you, dude. I'm making logical arguments, bro. You can't just be like, this is my opinion, therefore it's correct. That's the most fallacious thing. You're guessing and hoping and asserting based on your hope. I've not guessed, hoped, or asserted anything. I'm showing you. Like, what do you disagree with? All right. Lord, give me patience. Do not let me get frustrated with Brandon because he will try. Okay. We might be rare. We don't know yet. We happen to be lucky on a planet that supports life. Right, and that's a good point. I agree. We're certainly rare-ish. Like, it's not like every planet has life. But I completely agree that without God, we would have to be lucky. But this is how lucky we'd have to be. And I'm not saying ChatGPT knows all the answers, but it's useful for just like, okay, look, so here's this. Some researchers estimate the probability of abiogenesis, life forming from non-life, which again, you'd have to explain, and also consciousness forming from inert matter, non-conscious matter. How does that happen? But the biochemical probability, and that's just the biochemical. That's not everything else, like the geologic probability and the gravitic probabilities of perhaps 1 in 10 to the 40,000. An incomprehensible number, an essentially infinite number. Right. So no planet that, yeah, agree. So you agree that life on Earth is extremely improbable, considering we've observed no other planet that has it. And that all these factors add up to be an absolute improbability. Comic Brandon, if you proved me right that there is no need for a reason, I would, I guess, not need a reason. I don't know what to tell you. Right. Yet it happened. Yes, exactly, David. Exactly. Okay. How? Do things happen that have a 1 in infinity probability? Ever? Like, does gravity reverse randomly? Probabilities are not irrelevant. Probabilities are exactly what this conversation is entirely about. Because I can't give you proof for God. He's gonna need to do that for you. He's gonna need to step in and reveal himself to you and change your heart, change your mind. So I can only deal with probabilities. I can't deal with like proof of God. That's just not what I can do. Yes, probabilities are the result of reason. Reason is not unnecessary. Reason is extremely important. Well, no, we can't start there because reason is not unnecessary. Okay. So I said, God is real, prove me wrong. And Comic Brandon's point, Comic Brandon's starting point is reason is irrelevant. Is this what you want to sound like, David? Is this the type of guy you want to sound like? Life may be abundant. It absolutely may be. Even if it is, it's still extremely improbable. Because not only is life not probable, given like the biochemical equations, the strong nuclear force, the strength of gravity has to be exactly what it is. These forces all have to be exactly what they are. Like existence itself, like matter itself, based on these 5 are infinitesimally improbable. So, oh, sorry, I forgot I'm not streaming my desktop anymore. But you get the point. The strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, the ratio of electron to proton mass, and the strength of gravity all have to be exactly what they are for any matter to exist. So what reason is invalid, we're disagreeing. No, I'm not jumping there yet. But again, you're kind of doing the comic Brandon thing. You're pretty much doing the comic Brandon thing where you're saying, well, it just is what it is, man. Like, but that's how it is, so that's how it is. No need to question or wonder. Well, then why are you here? Why did you click on a video that says God is real? If there's no need to question or wonder, or if there's no reason. Matter, okay, but they are exactly, that doesn't mean God created it. Matter does not matter. Chemistry matters yeah, sure, chemistry is improbable as well. Plenty of repeating patterns and ratio in nature and universe itself. Thank you, Alex. We can't say for sure what's up and how it started, but the existence of God makes sense. I completely agree. It's impossible to know the mind of God. But these patterns and ratios, the precision of them and the necessity of their preciseness is what makes God probable in this example. There's other things. There's a lot more we can talk about. But it is important to understand how precisely tuned the universe is for life and just for matter, honestly. I was showing earlier we're using ChatGPT. We're not relying on it. But these are 10 examples of the fine tuning. And like these first 5, if these aren't exact, well, and this one I don't know about, at least these first 6, if they weren't exactly what they are, then there'd be zero matter. And so already the probability of matter existing without somebody like literally forming it, creating these laws, creating these ratios, putting it all together perfectly is 0. It's like 1 in infinity, which is essentially 0. I will take that as a compliment, Brandon. I will take that as a huge compliment that I am as if Chris Farley snorted Bill Hicks. I like that. I might use that. Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna ignore you, comic Brandon, but you are funny, so I'll keep you in here. Why do I look like both of the blues? Because that's what I'm going for, dude. That's what I'm going for. Life as we know it is 100% probable. Not true. How are you saying that? Given the fine-tuning of the universe, why is life 100% probable? Is it 100% probable on Mars? On Venus? In another universe where there's no gravity? In what sense is life 100% probable? I'm going to need more explanation on that because everything that I'm seeing and showing says that life is completely improbable. No, I understand that I'm here, but the only explanation for that is that somebody performed a miracle to make me here. Because it's impossible for me to be here without a miracle. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep, yeah. All right, let's move on to something else because you guys don't get this. You're saying just because okay, so what are the odds of me making a hole-in-one golf shot on Pebble Beach? All right, I won't call it a miracle. I don't want to trigger you. I don't want to trigger anybody. I won't call it a miracle. What are the odds of me hitting a hole-in-one golf shot on Pebble Beach? Probably like 1 in a trillion, considering I suck at golf, right? less than the fine-tuning, for sure, but almost impossible. Okay, so if I did it and got super lucky and hit a hole-in-one at Pebble Beach, would you say that it was 100% probable? If so, then you believe in like a Calvinist God who has set out everything to happen. So you do believe in God. But no, of course it wouldn't be 100% probable for me to hit a shot, even though I hit it. Anything I did. Okay, I'm spinning roulette and I put all my money on red and it hits. Would you say it was 100% probable that I was going to hit on red? No, of course not. It's 50% probable. So just because something happened doesn't affect the probability of that it would happen. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Are you following? I know Brandon doesn't get anything, so don't listen to him. Do you, David, the important person, understand? Right. Okay. So extend that out to the universe. Why would you say it's 100% probable when it's clearly, based on this, hold on, based on all these arguments, not even arguments, just scientific facts, way more improbable than me making a hole-in-one on Pebble Beach and a hell of a lot more improbable than me hitting red on a roulette table? Are you getting me now? You want to move to a different argument, or do you understand? In spite of the odds, it did happen. However, that is not necessarily special. Okay, fair enough. So what's your hypothesis is that we just happen to like maybe there's infinite universes and we happen to live in the one where all of this stuff happened, right? Is that what you're saying? And sure, yeah, those odds might change or whatever, but the space exploration is not really relevant because, like I pointed out, I really wish my Stream Deck was working. As we pointed out, these five, at least, deal with the existence of matter itself. So, I mean, even the fact that there are planets to explore and space to exist and stars and yada, 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 gravity and everything is already too improbable to really have taken place. And there's no amount of exploration that is going to change that the gravitational constant has to be exactly what it is. The strong nuclear force has to be exactly what it is. The weak nuclear force has to be exactly what it is. Even if we find a bunch of life, that would just affect like these few, right? Like even really just these two. Once it gets down to the planet level, so that does space exploration doesn't really like save you here. Yeah, I know there's like a delay, but I think I already responded to the fact that the odds can't be huge because the first five things, which are each, keep in mind, each of these things, it's not like these all add up to make some giant probability, which they obviously do. Each one is absurdly improbable by itself, like one in quadrillions, and then you add them together or multiply. Actually, I think you multiply them. I'm not really a mathematician. I don't know. And so that's what makes it impossible, right? Okay. Okay, fine. Life. Forget life. What about planets? How do those exist? Same probability. Again, these five. Planets couldn't exist without all these. This is all atomic. Stars wouldn't exist without this one. Atomic nuclei couldn't be held together without this one. Obviously, gravity is really important. It has to be exact. Okay, great. All right, fine. So, but you agree it's improbable, right? Doesn't mean a creature made it. Completely agree with you. Right. Let's move on. So, our creator, right. Okay, so what's your explanation? What did make it then? Again, technically you guys are supposed to be proving me wrong, but whatever. What explains this? I'd like to hear a theory. I can think of a couple, like I could steel man you, but I want to hear you think of a couple. God is obviously possible. It's not about proving anything to be possible, like 100%. Like, can you prove that your mother loves you? No, you can't give me like a scientific theorem that says your mother loves you, but you know based off of experience and probability that she does, right? Because of things that have happened, right? Shit, now I forgot what I asked that you guys are saying no idea to. Yeah, we're working to it. We're working to it. We're working to it. Right. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what argument is going to... You can prove life is possible by looking around, right? Right. Exactly. Yes, I can prove God is possible. That's what I'm doing. That's what all these proofs are. Because God is possible because we know... So far we've proven, you guys agree, that there's a cause to the universe, that the universe is extremely unlikely to happen without any external cause. So that already is a possibility. That already is actually a pretty strong possibility that there's something outside of the universe determining this. Have we gotten to Christian God yet? No, of course not. Of course not. Yeah, no idea how this universe came into being. So what can we do? We have to think, right? Is the universe existing in infinite regression? As in like an infinite multiverses are creating this universe, and that's why the improbabilities exist. Like I'm not asking you to disprove God. You can't disprove a negative, right? Or vice versa. I can't remember how that goes. Brandon, I'm not talking to you. You don't even understand. Okay. Where was I? This is so confusing. I need to stop looking at the chat so much. Okay. So, we've talked about how everything's improbable. We've talked about how there must be a cause of the universe. So, now I'm asking you to tell me a hypothesis or a theory about what could have caused the universe, especially such an improbable universe as this. Now, one thing is very common for atheists and agnostics and materialists is to say that there's some sort of multiverse or cosmic soup infinitely generating universes. And because it's infinite, one of them is going to pop up that has all the conditions that we need for life. Are you satisfied with that? And Alex has a great point here, yeah. Brandon, if you didn't follow the cosmological argument, we talked about it for an hour, dude. Just you and me. That was in a whole other stream. What do you want us to... Yeah, and Alex is right again. We can't fully grasp it, but we can... The question is, can we have any knowledge of it at all? Like, if God exists, would he reveal himself, or itself, or whatever you want to say, herself? Would they reveal themselves? Okay. Cannot say this universe is improbable unless you have another probable universe to compare with. Yeah, I do have another probable universe to compare with, and it's in my imagination. That's the philosophical term of possible worlds. Like, if you can imagine it, then it's a possible world, right? Well, I can easily imagine many other universes that don't have any of the fine-tuned things. And actually, it's so easy to imagine that it is the vast probability is that no life, no matter, no atomic structures would ever exist because of how finely tuned what we observe them to be are, right? Yeah, Alex is on track here. Okay, let's keep it back on track. What is the probability of God? Like, what's the alternative to God, right? So there's a cause to the universe. It's impossible. The universe is extremely improbable. What then is the cause? I agree. Pretty much everything is possible. I think there are certain things that aren't possible, like logical fallacies, like a square circle. That's not possible. Brandon not being annoying as hell. That's not possible. um, yeah, exactly. Brandon's gonna have some annoying proof. Okay, so but can we get back to what? And again, anybody. Wait, let me just post this again, just so again it'll be way easier to have a discussion. Hop in that Discord. It can be any of you guys, and we can talk about this like live, not in this weird chat with a delay and stuff. But yeah, your imagination says okay, great, perfect, all right, good, we're getting somewhere. So you can imagine other universes, you can imagine realities, and you could even, I know you're doing it tongue-in-cheek, but you could say that our reality is one where unicorns created everything. All right, fine. But does that track? Does that track with what we know? Like, what are we created in unicorns image, for instance? Like, are unicorns conscious, or do unicorns, right? I might be yeah. I don't know why I let this Brandon guy get under my skin. It's so annoying. I need to be more patient. Lord, bless me with patience. Okay, so, but if you're saying, like, okay, if I ask you, I'd say God does track with what we know, but so let's go back to the unicorn thing, because I asked you for an alternative, to be fair, and you gave me one, which is way more than Brandon has ever done, and so I appreciate you for that. So, did unicorns create the universe? Well, then you believe in God, right? If you're saying that's what it is, then you believe in God. Because a unicorn that's spaceless, timeless, immaterial, and extremely powerful, is that any different than a god? It's just sort of like a weird pagan one, okay? We really base what's possible and not based on our observations. Who knows what exists beyond everything we've ever seen and observed? Imagine asking an ant if there's an American flag on the moon. Yeah, I like that. That's a good point. I like that. Is God conscious, etc., etc.? Right. So the question is, if God is real, or this unicorn that you're presenting, which if that's your explanation for the improbability of the universe and what caused it, then fine. I mean, we can use that. But is that actually your best, like, steelman your own argument here? Is it actually your best argument that unicorns are responsible for the improbability and the fine-tuning of the universe, which we have observed to begin? All right. See you, Brandon. Finally. I didn't want to have to kick you, but goodbye. Jeez. Are unicorns really is that really like your actual, if you're thinking about it, like what the best explanation for those facts are? Or are you still kind of stuck on the fact that the universe is improbable? Yeah, that's probably my bad. I did ask you to imagine. So what I'm talking about, like, deductive reasoning. I'm talking about like educated guess, imagining. Like, what is the actual, because what the atheists would usually say is that there's some sort of multiverse, right? Or some sort of universe generating equation, or like law of nature, right? But the unicorn thing, it's like not that different from God. If you agree that it's spaceless, timeless, immaterial, you're like pretty much halfway to Christian God. You're just halfway there. And then the next question is, does God reveal himself to people, or is he completely hidden? Educated guess, I have no idea. Exactly. Yeah. So if you have no idea, then why do you throw out the God idea? If it's more likely that there's a creator because of the improbability of the universe and the fact that it had a beginning and had a cause, why would you assume that it was nothing rather than something? Or universe? Well, we do have evidence for God. I mean, for one thing, the resurrection of Jesus. That's a pretty strong evidence. It's going to be hard to refute that. I mean, like Bart Ehrman, atheist, agnostic scholars, they all agree that Jesus was real, he lived, and he died, and they agree that there was an empty tomb. Maybe there's a few that disagree with the empty tomb thing, or they have theories about that, but it's pretty well accepted that there's an empty tomb and that thousands of people went to their horrific, violent, fiery crucifixion deaths, when all they would have to say to prevent that kind of death and the death of their families and everybody is, no, Jesus did not resurrect. So why did these people in the first century believe so staunchly in the resurrection of Jesus that they would literally be burned at the stake instead of just saying that he didn't? That's all they would have to do, is just say that he didn't resurrect. No, not a story in the Bible. I'm talking about the historical evidence. I'm talking about the life and the death, which are attested. I mean, literally, you could not find a biblical scholar or historian that would deny that. No, I'm not interpreting the Bible. I'm not even using the Bible yet. I'm not using the Bible, okay? The historical evidence from atheist, agnostic. I'm not quoting stories. I'm quoting history. I guess it's a story, but it's history. Atheist, agnostic historians and scholars agree that Jesus lived and he died. Okay? They also agree that thousands of people went to their violent, horrible deaths to proclaim the fact that he was resurrected. I'm not saying he was resurrected or the story says he was resurrected, so that's the proof. That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking you why they would believe that. No, that's not debatable. Okay, look up Bart Ehrman. Here, you want to do it on ChatGPT together? We can do it. Or if you don't trust ChatGPT, let me know and I'll do a different. I can find it in like Google Scholar. But okay. Do biblical scholars agree that Jesus lived and died in the first century? Okay, yes, the vast majority of biblical scholars and historians, regardless of their religious beliefs, and just so you're clear, and I've studied under a lot of these people, they are way more atheist and agnostic than you would expect. A lot of people go into biblical scholarship to disprove the Bible, right? Okay. And the same people agree that Jesus lived in the first century, and we get this from historical texts outside of the Bible. We get it from Josephus, who was an early Jewish historian. I think he was Jewish, yeah. We get it from other Roman historians. Jesus is the most attested person in history almost. We have way more proof of historical proof of Jesus's life and death than we do of Alexander the Great, or like Julius Caesar, or people that we're sure existed that we never question. Okay, and again, historians don't agree to the resurrection. You have to pay attention here. Historians agree that thousands of people went to their deaths, gruesome deaths, attesting to the resurrection. Do you understand the difference? I'm not saying historians say he resurrected. I'm saying historians agree that everyone believed he was resurrected. Do you understand? Oh, look, here's even the non-Christian sources. Look at that. Even skeptical scholars like Bart Ehrman affirm that, and Bart Ehrman, if you haven't heard of him, is the foremost biblical scholar, and he is an atheist, or agnostic, I'm sorry, affirm that he's not Christian. Right, I don't expect you to believe that, but I'm going to take you on a journey here, because why would we think it didn't happen? What person in their right mind who had no evidence, no proof, no reason would sacrifice their family and themselves in a fiery death just to say that just to say a lie? Who dies for a lie like that? What does that gain them? What's the point of that? There's a few options. I can tell you what the atheist scholars believe, and we can affirm that again for you if you'd like. But what there's a few theories. One of the theories is Yeah, right. But why would you die for a lie like that? Especially if you knew it was a lie. Yeah. Believe is not knowledge. I completely agree with you on that. But why would they believe? Why would they? Okay, there's a few theories. One, the the this is probably the most fringe, but I guess it kind of makes sense. Is that all the people that attest to seeing Jesus after his death, i.e., the resurrected Jesus, were hallucinating? Every single person. They were, I don't know, maybe they were super into mushrooms, or maybe they were so sad about Jesus' death that they all hallucinated seeing him. But does that really make sense? Why do people believe who are in cults? Well, the people believe who are in cults because they've had some experience, right? They've had some experience that they feel is real. But do people that are in cults, has anyone who's in a cult been crucified for that belief? Have they been burned at the stake? Have they been forced to? I know they are forced to do horrible things, and that seems more like some sort of mental manipulation, but that's only when the cult leader is still alive and has power over them. So why Jesus, who died, who clearly is not a cult leader, he talks about love and basically preaches love and acceptance and loving your neighbor and loving God and treating people well. I'm not saying because X number of people believe things doesn't mean it's true. I'm just saying, why do they believe it? What is the veracity of their claim? Right? There's options. Did they hallucinate it? Were they making it up for attention and lies, even though it would just get them killed? Or is there some other option I can't think of? Like, those are your options. They either hallucinated it and they actually believed it. They were intentionally lying to everybody and went to their deaths lying to everybody and got zero credit and zero fame, zero fortune for doing that. Or there's something I'm missing. So you have to either say it's one of those or there's some other thing that you believe. You can't just say. Yeah, Alex, I know we did get onto Christianity, but I think that's kind of what happens, at least in my book. Same reason they believe what they do in cults. Okay, so what is that reason? What do people believe when they're in a cult? Okay, well, Jesus never promised 40 virgins, and he actually says that being a Christian will cause you to suffer and will cause you'll have to bear your cross and you'll not live an easy life. So, and that was clearly true in the first century because everybody got executed and killed. So why? So, okay, I understand. I understand what you're saying. So your opinion is that thousands of first century Christians were willingly executed by the Roman government and all the governments because they had some sort of wishy-washy belief in the afterlife, which they did not have until they encountered Jesus and his disciples. Because again, remember, most of these people are Jews, a lot are Gentiles, and no matter what camp you fall in, you don't believe in heaven the way we think of it now. And it certainly wasn't preached back then the way we think of it now as like flowery cloud-like place in the sky. So what caused a person, say they're like 25 or 30 or 40, to believe their whole life that there is Sheol, like the Jewish, there's just non-existence, right? Or maybe even like Hades or something like that. And then, which is also pretty depressing, it's basically like non-existence. What makes them suddenly decide to believe in heaven? Is it just blind hope? Is it wish fulfillment? Something like that? Oh, it is it? Well, it's not very easy for me to get you to believe this. So, and you don't even have a religious position to cling to. Like you're not even Like, you weren't raised as a Jew and you're saying, well, no, the Jewish way is the best way because that's what I know and that's the culture and that's the way. You're just saying, I don't have any, I'm agnostic or whatever you are. I have no position. And you are even resistant to believe this. So why would these people that are deeply entrenched in their own religious like structures suddenly switch up their religion so much to the extent that they would be crucified or burned alive? Yeah, no, I know people believe shit that's crazy. But I guarantee you, if you went to a flat earther and you said, say the earth is round, or I'm going to burn you alive at the stake, and also I'm going to burn your whole family, the flat earther is just going to say that the earth is round, even if he doesn't believe it. So why did these Christians, why did they refuse to even say that their belief was wrong and then believe it privately? What was the veracity of their belief? What was the veracity of their claim that Jesus was the Son of God, that he lived, died, and was resurrected from the dead? Okay, while you think about this for a second and try to, I'm going to give you a second. I need to go to the bathroom real bad. Okay. All right, sorry, brother. I'm back. Okay, you tell me. Obviously, they believe in what Jesus said, etc. People do stupid things based on what they believe to be true, but that's beyond stupid, right? That's actually self-destructive. I mean, it's completely insane. It goes against all. Okay, so let me tell you again. Alex made a good point. So you're arguing against Christian God now. You agree that God exists, though, or no? We're not. We haven't gotten there yet. Do you agree that there is a metaphysical, larger than material reality that can be known and examined and talked about? And I agree with you. Believing in being killed does not mean there is a God. I agree. I agree. It's just all these things together. It's when you add up all the things, right? Like, well, we could get into the whole Bible. No. Okay, so you don't believe in any metaphysical reality. There was no pre-physicality, no materiality, no non-materiality. Okay, gotcha. So the physical universe has existed infinitely because nothing created it. So yeah. I have not presented enough to truly nothing logical or rational is going to convert you to Christianity. Yeah. No, I know you don't believe in a God at all. I'm wondering if you believe. Well, okay, you have two options, right? You have two options. You it's okay not to know, but it's like if you're taking a math test and you write IDK on the you don't get the points, you know what I mean? Like it's okay, but is it the best you could do? There is no, I mean, how are you asserting that? What kind of ontological knowledge do you have? What kind of omniscient knowledge? So you're raised as a Catholic. I understand how traumatizing that can be as well, especially all the guilt and the shame, and the church is boring. I get that. I really do get why you would be resistant to it, but that's why I'm trying to attack it from a different angle. I think there, and I'd love to know in a math exam there are true answers. I think there are true answers for everything. Don't you think there's a true answer to everything? Or no? No guilt. Why'd you leave? Yeah, boring. But that's why, because they didn't get it. And I was raised as a Episcopalian, which is basically as close to a Catholic as it gets without your eyes getting wet. So again, it was boring. I didn't have the guilt. We were probably very similar in our upbringing. And so I fell away from it, and I became atheist. I became agnostic. Then I, went on some sort of spiritual searching. I became like Buddhist, Hindu. I did all these things, right? Well, just because you don't know the true answer to the creation of the universe doesn't mean there isn't a true answer. Do you agree that there is a true answer or there is not? Well, there has to be, right? I mean, how could there not be a true answer? Like, there must be. Yes, please. I'd love to hear what your mother told you. Please, indulge me. And if you'd like to join... you're at work. I forgot. You can't join the Discord. While you tell me that, let me... do a little chat GPT-ness. Just so people aren't bored. Looks like we've got a 60-40 belief in God versus non. Right, and I would argue that we do know the true answer. But I am interested. I want to hear what your mother told you, because that sounds interesting. It's rare that a mother would push the son away from the religion that she's from, but that's actually exactly what happened to Comic Dave as well, or Comic Brandon. Although his mom seems like a real battle axe. This guy is the worst. No, God bless him. I pray for him. I don't want to talk about him behind his back. Yeah, I'm not sure if it is okay to say I don't know. Seems like it'd be pretty important to know, especially if there is an answer. Oh, she didn't push you. Okay. So she tried to give you an argument that just felt wrong or something, or? I'd be happy to hear that story. I'd like to. And again, just in case anyone wants to jump in, I know you're at work and you can't, but that's okay. Am I lagging, by the way? How's it going? We were having major lag problems on the last stream. It's okay to say I don't know when we don't know. That's true. That's vaguely true. Ontologically, that's not really true, but... okay. I asked my mom if there's an Easter bunny. She said something profound. What do you think? That is a good answer. I've always wondered how I would approach that topic with my potential children. Santa, Easter bunny, like, I loved believing in that stuff. Right. So she was a proponent of free speech. That's great. And free thought, rather. And she didn't want to prescribe answers to you. And I don't want to do that either. That's why this is all an argumentation process. That's why I'm not really proselytizing. I'm just giving arguments. Right up the chain. Right. Well, that's a fallacy, right? That's a total fallacy. Because just because there's no Easter bunny and there's no Santa Claus does not mean there's no God. Because the Easter bunny and Santa Claus are things that are contingent beings within the universe that you could make up. But the argument I'm giving you for God is that he's the cause of the universe. a necessary being, not possible to be unreal, right? And again, I would point to the fine-tuning argument. I think that's solid. I would point to the cosmological argument. I think that's solid. But like we can't, again, like I can't present to you a logical like proof or a logical chain of reasoning for like Santa Claus. Could give you a lot of anti-proofs. Right. I think what you did by accident, I think you reasoned correctly that certain things don't exist. But that just because one thing doesn't exist doesn't mean that another thing also doesn't exist, right? Like, so if I lied to you and I told you that I don't have a brother, I lied to you and I told you I have a brother, and then you looked up my family records and my history and you found out, wait a second, you don't have a brother? Would that mean that my dad didn't exist? Of course not. Of course I have a dad. You need to have a dad. Unless I was like some sort of clone or something. But I'm not. So, just because I don't have a brother doesn't mean that my dad doesn't exist. Do you understand? Or you saw no proof for any of that, including God. Well, that's why that's sort of what I'm offering you right now. So, how do you counter the proof? I'm going to call it an argument. It's more like an argument because, again, we're dealing with probabilities here, not proof. For anything metaphysical, you don't have proof. So love is metaphysical, no? How do you prove that your mother loves you? We talked about this earlier. You said you know from experience and something else. I can't remember. I think you said experience. No. Extraordinary claims do not need extraordinary evidence. That is false. That's actually false. In a lot of senses, extraordinary claims just need the most basic amount of evidence. Or they at least are beholden to the same amount of evidence as anything else. Right, by her actions, etc., etc. Right, so I'm saying I believe in the metaphysical truth of God based on his actions, based on what I observe. The fact that there's order all around us when the probabilities tell us that there should be nothing. There should be no order. There should just be entropy and chaos. Their planet should not have formed. Life should not have happened. Consciousness should not have existed. So that's what I'm basing the metaphysical argument for God on, right? Again, I can't give you like X plus Y equals God, because that's not the realm of what we're talking about. Or that would be a material way to prove something. I'm talking about metaphysics. So you believe in love, surely? No? Or like, is love real or is it fake? Or is it like a hallucination? Let's see what ChatGPT thinks about that. Is love real? Wow, ChatGPT, a bit of an atheist. Oh, no, I see. Okay, they give different views, right? I'm going to agree with ChatGPT here, that it is real. In short, love is as real as the impact it has on us. I'd agree with that. Okay, biology, material not found on Earth, etc. That's what you accredit love to, is biology? Material not found on Earth? Would you take a bullet for your mother? It wouldn't be wrong if you wouldn't. I don't know your mother. I don't know if we are. No, this is all relevant. Because we have to. It seems like you're not convinced that things which are invisible exist. No, you wouldn't take a bullet for your mother? Okay, yeah. I don't know your relationship with your mother. A lot of people would sacrifice themselves for their mother. That is not biological. That is in no way evolutionary. Extraordinary proof. Yeah. So where I know this is a new atheist like catchphrase, but it's also a fallacy. Why does anything need extraordinary evidence? You either have evidence or you don't, right? Like why does an extraordinary claim need extraordinary evidence and not just evidence? Okay, okay, yeah, no, I know the delay is so hard to deal with. That's why I like doing it in the Discord better. But yeah, the delay. Okay, so you will. I mean, again, so there you go. Yeah, let's hear about your disagreement. Let's get back to the evidence, extraordinary evidence. Carl Sagan said that. I disagree with Carl Sagan. I love him. I love the book Contact. I think he's a genius, and I think he believed in God. Or maybe he didn't actually. I don't know. He was spiritual, but maybe not. Maybe he wasn't a theist. But yeah, let's hear. I want to hear what you have to say about that because I disagree. You make a claim to have a brother. Easy to prove. Right? Extraordinary. Not following you here, David. I'm sorry. So I make a claim to have a brother. That's easy to prove. Gotcha. That's basic evidence. Material not found on this earth or an alien body. But I mean, but like if I was trying to prove alien life and then I just showed you an alien, that would not be that extraordinary. That would just be evidence, right? Or like a whatever, a UFO or like the alien's limb or something like that. Or its DNA. Actually, like you just need so to prove I have a brother, I would show you a picture of my brother. To prove there was an alien, I would show you a picture of an alien, right? I mean, are some of them getting lost? I'm not sure. You can see on my screen what I see. Let me. Did I lose something from you? But my point is, I don't know if this addresses my point. My point is that you need the exact same amount of evidence to prove anything. Like, there's no extraordinary evidence. Evidence is just evidence. Right, but if I just told you there are aliens, that's not evidence. Just like if I told you I have a brother, that's not evidence either. You'd have to see the picture or the DNA or something like that, right? So it's everything. I would say most things, if not everything, requires like the same burden of evidence. Yes, it is a big claim to say a miracle happened, but everything we observe around us is miraculous. Okay, so we have to get the definition straight on miracle. What is a miracle? Something that is impossible, right? Yeah, Alex is on the right track here. Alex on snack. He's on the exact right track. Existence, matter, consciousness, and life itself are completely improbable. They are impossible. So that's the first miracle. you could make a better guess that I have a brother than the fact that I have an alien, but you wouldn't need more evidence to prove that I have a brother than that I have an alien. I mean, vice versa. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, I agree that you shouldn't take people's wild claims on the face of it with no evidence, but I'm saying extraordinary claims do not require extraordinary evidence. They just require evidence. Do you get my distinction here? Alex is exactly right, though. What if everything observable is proof for God's existence, but you just decide not to? Well, okay, then in that sense, if it doesn't mean more evidence, then I agree with Carl Sagan, and we do have extraordinary evidence. It's extraordinary. The improbability, the fine tuning of the universe is so extraordinary. Yeah, it is physical evidence because that's an argument. So the fine tuning of the universe is not talk. It's not hearsay. It's scientific fact. Do we need to prove that again or prove that more in depth? Well, it says science. How about that? Is the universe fine-tuned? Scientist reactions. Let's see. Okay, well, I mean, what article do you want me to click on here? Okay, popular science, our universe might not be fine-tuned. We can click on that. It's not about universes to compare it with. It's just about what the probability is. Like, we can observe thousands of solar systems. Fine-tuned compared to all the other possible universes. That's what it's compared to, that you can imagine. Fine-tuned does imply something tuned it. Good point, but that doesn't make it untrue. Yeah, that's a good point, Alex. Yeah, how do we explain this? Well, okay, fine. How about our planet is fine-tuned compared to all the other planets we can observe, which is not none. Yeah, you can imagine anything. You absolutely can. All right. What do you want to talk about next? Because we have not convinced you. If we can't convince you of the fine-tuning of the universe, I'm not sure what we can go to. Let's see. Well, do you have any questions in particular? Anything that plagues you? Like what? Okay, let me ask you this. What prevents you from believing in God? What is your evidence that the universe is possible without a creator? No, I don't believe in the God of the gaps. That's not what I'm implying. I'm trying to use a rational, logical argument. The cosmological argument is deductive, so it does not rely on a God of the gaps. And I'm just trying to point out the impossibility of our universe, and I'm trying to ask you, I'm trying to present a possible solution. And if it's possible, then that's at least better than it being impossible, right? And so the fact that all of this came from chaos, entropy, inert matter, that all the order and structure you see in your body, in the universe, on the earth, that is impossible. That is less of a possibility than the fact that there's a creator. That's all I'm saying. It's a probability game. So I'm not doing God of the gaps. I don't think that just because I don't know something, that means God did it. I'm trying to build a real argument. Right. Yeah, exactly. Alex, yeah. Yes, our universe is 100% possible because it's here. I completely agree. Completely agree that's 100% possible. Is it 100% probable? Obviously not, right? Or no? I don't know if I like the compared to what thing because David already kind of said that. It's like, yeah, how do you know what he doesn't believe in imagine that you David doesn't believe in imagining other possible universes, which actually does make it hard um, to compare things. I mean, I don't see why you don't believe in that. Maybe you could start with explaining that. But if you want to move on, just let me ask you what makes it what evidence when you disproved the Easter Bunny and you disproved Santa Claus and you disproved God, what made you what was the difference between disproving Santa Claus and God? Was there any difference? It was just as easy to say Santa doesn't exist as God doesn't exist? Okay, so to answer, what do I need to believe in God is evidence for a God. Right, that's sort of what we're presenting. So how do you counter the evidence we presented? The fact that the universe is impossible and that it must have had a cause. But I think you just disagree with the premise that the universe is impossible, which is hard to get around. I had no evidence for either Santa or God. But you also have no evidence that you're. Well, I guess you do. Okay. I see. All right. Interesting. I had no evidence for either. Huh. What counts as evidence for? We have to define evidence. Can you define evidence for me? Because I've given you a lot of answers, and I've given you actual evidence. I'm not sure if we're on the same page as to what evidence entails. If you're talking about scientific evidence, that will never happen. No, I'm not just saying it. Science agrees. Do scientists agree that the universe is dependent on fine tuning? Right. This is what I'm talking about. You don't have to agree with what the fine tuning implies, but we have to at least agree, like scientists actually agree, that fine tuning is something to contend with. Shit, I forgot what my question was now. And that's a good point by Alex. Yeah, there was actually a Saint Nicholas, and mythologically he's real. In people's imaginations, he's real, and that sort of makes him real because like kids believe in him and they get presents, and so they like are manifesting this kind of like thing. There is some sense in which Santa is real, which I love. But I know I don't think that's going to be convincing to David. So which God do I want to talk about? I mean, obviously I am a Christian, so I always like to talk about Christian God, but we can talk about any of them. I mean, um, okay, sure, fine. So the conditions that allow life to happen are so improbable as to be essentially impossible. So how do you explain that? Like, how do you explain that without God? Yeah. I think that's what Alex is getting at. There, when you get into real spirituality, Christianity, religion, and you start taking metaphysics seriously, then reality starts to include things like the idea of Santa. Okay, so that's where we're coming from on that. You can't possibly think. I understand it doesn't mean God, but if you can't possibly think of one, and I can possibly think of one, then why should I take your assumption that there isn't one over mine? I'm not using God of the gaps. How am I using God of the gaps? I'm just saying it's possible. I'm using that to say it's possible that God exists. If you can't think of a single other possibility, then, well, what are we doing here? No, I'm saying the odds are absolutely improbable. So what are possible answers? And then we talk about probabilities. I shouldn't say? Yeah, I'm really not doing that. I think you're misunderstanding. Can you give me a few possible explanations? I can ask ChatGPT, but I'd like to hear you do it. If you can give me a few possible ways for this universe for the conditions that allow life to happen. You just did. You said its odds are not for life, then explain it with that. I mean, I can steel man your argument. I'm more interested in having you do that because I want to see how you think, but yeah, the odds are not for life, right? So if you're not clear about my argument, so that you can see that it's not a God of the gaps argument, I'm looking at what is the most probable explanation for why our universe, which has the conditions that allow life to happen, which are so improbably small, what possible explanation could there be for that? I can think of a few. I can think of God being the creator of all of it and, managing it and taking it seriously and holding it together and constructing it and creating it from his own rational, logical mind. You're not going to accept that. Fine. I can think of another one too. I know you don't know. I don't know either. I'm just saying you have to take possibilities and then assign probability values to them. Okay, the other one I can think of is that there's a multiverse. There's like a cosmic soup, that the universe is infinitely looping. All right, let me just give you an argument that we can talk about because it doesn't seem like you just kind of want to say, I don't know, and it's okay not to know. I agree, but then it's like, what are you doing here? Also, you're asserting far more than me. You're actually using a science of the gaps argument because you say, because I don't know, parentheses, you sneak this in, no one knows, that doesn't mean there is a creator. How do you know that nobody knows? Like, if you don't know the answer to a math problem, does that mean that nobody knows the answer to the math problem? And especially if you don't know, then why are you quick to dissuade the only possible solution that you've been presented and you can't think of another one? Well, no, I'm just saying, how do you know none of us knows? Like, where do you get that knowledge from? Where do you get that information? So a lot of people claim to know. Right. So just because you don't know, how do you know that nobody knows? Because you've asserted that many times now. Do you have omniscient knowledge? You know the end of epistemology? Yeah, I agree that claiming is not knowing, but how do you know that nobody knows? How do you know that their claims are false? Where does your omniscient knowledge about how all claims are false come from? No, it's pretty relevant. It's pretty relevant because if you don't know, and then you assume that nobody knows, then you're circularly reasoning yourself into never being able to find an answer, right? It's totally circular. If you say it's impossible to know and that's your a priori assumption, then of course you will never know because you'll assume that any answer you come to is false because nobody can know, right? To you, there has not been sufficient evidence. Right. Okay, fine. We can go back there. But you admit that you don't know that nobody knows, right? No, I don't know. But I would never say nobody knows. Right. You're assuming. Right. Right. And I'm really trying not to assume anything. I don't think I've assumed anything unless you can think of something which I a priori, without reason, without logic, have just asserted as fact. I've said that the universe is nearly impossible to exist, which is a scientific fact. We've gone through that, but we can go through it again. And I've given you the cosmological argument, which is a deductive argument, which has zero room for assumption or anything else. It's if premise 1 and premise 2 are true, then the conclusion follows. We can go through those premises again if you want. Actually, technically, I haven't done that. I've actually just asked you for what are the possibilities given the fact that the odds for life are very low. So that's a question, a statement of fact, plus a question. I'm not sure what I've assumed there. Because then we build, right? So obviously I believe in God. I have faith in God. I read my Bible. I love Christ. Christ saved my life. So I have that, but I'm really trying to stay within the bounds of not like presuming that worldview. Because obviously I know you don't believe that. So how's that going to help you if I just go, there's a God, atheist scum, right? Like that would not be helpful. That's what the atheists do to me. And that's what you're unintentionally doing, but that's okay. We're going to get you out of this. So, statement of fact, the universe is extremely, almost impossibly improbable to exist. What are the possible options? How do we explain this improbability? Nope. Just the statement of fact plus the question. I don't expect you to say God. I expect you to say something else. All right, I agree. I agree with that. I know you're not because we've had a great conversation and you're open to truth and evidence. So I know you're not one of those atheists. And that's why I'm treating you with respect. I can be a lot meaner, as you saw with the other guy, Brandon. Again, this is an a priori assumption. We cannot explain it. How do you know this? How do you know we can only guess? How do you know? I'm not saying I know the answer. I'm just saying, how do you know we can only guess? I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. We can only guess, but some guesses are going to be better than others, right? Are some guesses going to be better than others? I don't know we can. That's why I'm just asking the question so we can build an argument. I'm asking, given the improbability of life existing in the universe, what are the possible causes of that? I'm not saying one of those is right yet. I'm not saying which one I want you to say. I'm just asking you to inquire and think and question, what can you possibly imagine are the causes of life? And if you just say, I don't know, then I don't know what you're doing. Might as well just be in a coma or something, right? like you can think, you can imagine. I know you have the capability to imagine and think. Natural mechanisms, physics, etc. Great. Gotcha. Materialism, right? Okay. Many of which we may not know about. I completely agree. Right. So natural material processes of space and time and matter. That's kind of what we're talking about, right? That could have caused, that's one explanation. It's a possibility for why this infinitely improbable universe exists. Is that fair? Yep, Big Bang. I agree with that. I agree with that. Is it your belief, assumption, knowledge? Well, should we ask ChatGPT? Did the Big Bang create, or okay, wait. Did space, time, and matter exist before the Big Bang? Okay. If All right. So basically this is saying if our current conception, general relativity, is correct, then space, time, and matter began at the beginning and there was no before. So that's the beginning of time and space, right? And if quantum physics is correct or there's some other stuff going on, then something may have existed before and in a super different form. Maybe it was another universe, or maybe it was like this big soupy thing or something like that. So either there was a beginning to time or time was infinite, right? Do we agree with that? Like either there was a beginning of the universe, or, and by the universe I mean matter, like physics, atoms, quarks, things that have material, things that have take up space. Either that there was an infinite regression of matter and soup and atoms bumping into each other, or everything actually started, right? Do you agree with that? Okay, gotcha. So, again, we can't prove anything. Which one is more likely now? Which one makes sense? Which one is possible, right? Okay. I will contend philosophically that it is impossible to have a real set of infinite things. Okay, follow me on this. If I have infinite coins, and I subtract infinity from infinity, then I get 0, right? The answer would be that I have 0 coins if I subtract infinite coins from infinite coins. Okay, what if I subtract infinity coins from the set of 3 to infinity? Well, then I have 3 coins left, right? Because I've subtracted the set of 0 to infinity from the set, I've subtracted the set of 3 to infinity from the set of 0 to infinity. So infinity minus infinity is also 3. And you can do this for any number. Are you following me so far? Is this making sense? How do you have a real set of anything infinite? A material set of anything infinite? Are you a coder? Do you ever code? Huh? No, as in you don't agree that, sure, coins, I mean, anything. It can be days, it can be marbles, it can be, anything real, anything material, atoms. Okay. So I don't code. I don't know this, but a lot of my friends do. And they told me when I was explaining this to them that if you accidentally code an infinite set into anything that you're doing, the entire code breaks down and it becomes impossible to perform, right? Because how do you traverse an infinite set of anything? Especially, like, now it's good to think about time, right? I don't know how deep you got into it. I don't know if you accidentally ever did this. Did you ever code something and then you accidentally made, like, the parameters infinite? Or, like, you just didn't put an end parameter on something or something? Like, I don't even know how coding works. I'm really not a coder, so I barely know how it works, but... Oop, shit, sorry. And how's the stream looking, by the way? Is it buffering a lot? Is it lagging? It would cause an infinite loop, right? It keeps repeating over and over again. Well, I could ask you the question that Alex asked earlier. How did the code get there? But anyway, you can think about that for a sec if you want. Like, if there's an infinite set, like, say your infinite code that's looping infinitely, then how does, like, who put the code there? That's one possible explanation for this. But my point is, I'm trying to prove to you that it's impossible to have a real set of infinite anything. And that includes time. Okay. So if time... Well, I guess there's two options for infinity, right? Either it, like, spreads back and forward infinitely, as you would imagine, with no looping. Or, as, like, the Mayans and the Aztecs believe, there's, like, time happens and it goes around and around and then it loops back and then it keeps happening and it keeps happening and it keeps happening. So which one do you think, which one strikes you as more probable in this, like, idea that there's an infinite amount of time for universes to be created? The point of this is to prove that infinity, a real set of infinite things, is actually impossible. Okay, let me make the question more simple. Well, let me just ask. Do you believe it's impossible for there to be infinite anything material? Yeah, a real set of infinite things. For instance, does the universe have infinite atoms? Is there infinite time in the past and in the future? Is there infinite... Are there infinite universes, multiverses, or whatever? Do you see what I'm saying? Huh, interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I wouldn't say that soup is infinite because there is a definable integer of atoms. Right, you don't know. Well, okay. Can't know that I would say. Right. Did you understand my the thought experiment of subtracting infinity from infinity earlier? Like, if you subtract the set of 0 to infinity, Obviously, that set is infinite. And then I would say only God is infinite. Only the uncaused cause, the first chain, but nothing in reality, like in materiality, in the physical universe or multiverse or whatever it is, can possibly be infinite. Because otherwise, if it loops, then you would have an effect that was its own cause, which makes no sense, right? Or if it spans in two directions like this, infinitely in time and space, there's no way to traverse it. And also, there just can't be a set of infinite days, because if you subtract, pick a day and go like, I would say God is infinite because it's the only possibility, for one. Well, okay. If anything is infinite, it has to be immaterial. It can't be in this world. And it would have to be, if it's infinite in one sense, I feel like it would have to be infinite in a lot of senses, or in every sense. And yes, humans can't fully grasp what God is because he is infinite. But I'm trying to prove the point that the universe must have been started at a certain point, because there's no infinite set of real things. Okay? So if I take a day, so say there's an infinite, timeline, right? If I take January 3rd to infinity, that's a set, right? That's a set of numbers, a set of dates, a set of real dates, right? And I subtract that, January 3rd to infinity, from the set of January 1st to infinity, January 1st to infinity versus January 3rd to infinity, then the number you get is 3, right? Or 2, whatever. Then the number you get is 2. But what if I do this with January 7th? What if I do it with January 10th? Then infinity minus infinity can be 3, it can be 7, it can be 10, it can be whatever number you put in there. Do you see what I mean? That's logically impossible. That can't exist in our reality. Is this making any sense? It's like philosophically impossible. It's not like I can show you with marbles or something. Let me ask ChatGPT. We're trying to go back to the cosmological argument and show you that that there must be a point in time in which time started, because that's important for proving God, and because it also happens to match up with what the Bible tells us. In mathematics, infinite sets exist conceptually, but mathematical infinity is not the same as physical infinity. It describes an abstract concept, not a physically realized infinite quantity. Because remember, let me get back to the point. Remember, we're thinking of possible ways that this completely improbable universe got here. It's like it's a painting we found in the middle of the woods on a beautiful hike, right? We found this painting and we're like, how the hell did this get here? What are the options? Was it like a guy was out here painting? Was it somebody dropped it out of their backpack? Like what happened? And so the two options so far that we got to is either there's some sort of like infinite soup of material stuff that could eventually lead to this universe, which it would have to be because it's so improbable, or there's an intelligent creator that started it at a certain point. So right now what I'm doing is disproving the idea that there could possibly be like an infinite soup or a multiverse, an infinite multiverse that spawned this universe. Do you understand? And ChatGPT agrees that infinity is impossible in physicality. If you want to read some of these, or I can go through some of these. I like the philosophical argument because I think it, you could always prove that the universe is bigger than we've proven it so far, but philosophically, it's hard to get around. So potential infinity. Oh, right. Hilbert's hotel paradox. That's a good one. Do you know that? Oh, look, and then here's our best friend, the Kalam cosmological argument. It always comes back. Okay. In the observable universe, no. Can there be an infinite set of material things? No. In the whole universe, maybe, if the universe is spatially infinite, but that doesn't solve the paradoxes that come along with that. Okay, where I'm going with this is that we had presented two possibilities. I'm not saying proofs or options, whatever. Two possibilities for how we get the improbable universe that we're sitting in and looking at. Life, consciousness, everything. The two options are God created it, which is my theory, or your theory that a process of material things created it. Are we on the same page here? Yeah, process, right. And so is that do you also agree that time began at the Big Bang? And that's an interesting thing. Maybe I shouldn't rely on that. But do you agree that time began at the Big Bang? Or that there was a beginning of time at some point? Okay. So what happened before? What was the cause of? What are the possible causes of time? Okay, or you don't know that there was a possible time, that there was a beginning. So that's where I'm going with this, is that we're narrowing down, we're starting with a wide field of possibilities, and we're narrowing down. ChatGPT, not that I don't like to rely on ChatGPT, but for stuff like this, it's kind of easy because it just like basically is a Google search of like what the consensus is. So, do scientists believe time started at the Big Bang? According to Einstein, it does. According to Einstein, there's a t equals 0. Okay, so we're narrowing down options. Okay. So if you can follow me and you can agree, maybe I got too in the weeds about the impossible. Oh, ChatGPT is? Oh, depending on how we define time and which theory. Okay, alternative theory. Let's see. The cyclic universe, right? Big bounce, right? That's the circle I was talking about. But that's impossible, right? Because then wouldn't an effect, the end of the circle, be its own cause? Because if an effect caused the first cause on that circle, this effect was its own cause. That's logically completely inconsistent. Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking I would say space-time are connected, as Einstein says, and that they were all created at the same point, which seems to be the Big Bang, but it could be something else. Then there's the multiverse theory, which is more like the timeline. But like, how do you have an infinite set of those? Because if you subtract infinity multiverses from an infinity of multiverses, you can get any number. That's the Hilbert Hotel paradox. That's the thing I was trying to, explain to you earlier. So what I'm doing is we're narrowing down options. We have all these possibilities for how the universe got here, how this beautiful painting came to be where it is, and we're cutting away the ones that don't make sense, right? So this one, out. This one, out. The infinity theories are out. They do not add up. They cannot be possible. Okay, we can go all night. All right, I agree. Let's say God exists for argumentation. Which God? Christian God. Easy. Where do we start? Where do you want to start? First of all, let's start. It could be Buddhist, it could be Hindu, it could be Sikh, it could be Muslim, it could be Jewish. I would say Jewish God and Christian God are the same God. But a question we have to ask to decide whether it's an Eastern religion or an Abrahamic religion is, if God exists, which we're assuming he does for argument, does God reveal himself to people? Is there any way to know about God? Is he knowable? Well, what do you think about that? Yeah, a lot of gods, a lot of gods. A lot of gods. So, is God knowable or not knowable? And I guess you're going to say, I don't know. And then you're going to ask me for my proof. Okay. So, we did briefly get into this. If God does reveal himself, which I believe he does, a Christian God used to reveal himself through miracles and in person, etc. Right. And still does, by the way. But yeah, exactly. Well, see, that's why we keep coming back to this fine-tuning and cosmological argument, because that is the first miracle. Wes Huff put it great on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said, how do you believe in the virgin birth of the universe and not the virgin birth of Christ? I mean, it seems a lot more unlikely that the universe would be born of a virgin, so to speak, inexplicably, out of nothing, well, not nothing, but out of non-space, non-time, non-matter, all that. But then we can't accept the virgin birth of a simple human compared to the whole universe. Do you see what I mean? So the question is, are you seeing all these miracles all the time and just deciding that they're not miracles because you're used to them? Not to mention the miracles that you might actually have seen that are not ordinary at all, that you might have discounted. I mean, I've seen a few in my life. I really have. An incredible miracle, which I could tell you about if you'd like, but we don't have to get into my testimony. We can keep it to the arguments. But also there's historical evidence for the miracle of Christ's resurrection, which is probably the most incredible possible miracle to occur. Who in modern... Nobody. Christ was. And I guess it's relatively modern. 2,000 years. Humans have been around for 30,000 or more. Yeah, and the evidence for that would be the historical evidence for... We know that Jesus lived and died, as we went over already. And we know that thousands of people went to their death proclaiming that he was resurrected. And we know that the tomb was empty. And we know... What else do we know? Well, we know that people purported to see him. So forget about Christ. Well, you did ask me which God exists. But we can forget about him. What do you want to talk about instead? You want to talk about Buddha? Talk about Buddha. Who has walked on water in modern times? I'm not sure. Probably somebody, but I've never heard of them. Maybe nobody. But Christ is God. So, of course, he's going to do more intense miracle. Well, I'm using the word purported to see because I know what you believe. I'm trying to adjust my language to what your preconceived notions are. Of course, like in my view, they did see him, and I could talk like that, but that's not going to help you, right? But what does it mean for them to purport to see that? Why would they purport that? So you have to keep in mind the historical context. They're first century Jews. They do not believe in the afterlife. They do not believe in the resurrection of the body. Because it's not without evidence. We have these pieces. Like, these historical facts are evidence. When you're talking about history, about whether an event in history happened, it's not a scientific theorem. It's a historical evidence. Like, how do you know that Alexander the Great happened? No, God did not. Allah says just to believe and not to question anything, but Christian God does not. You're allowed to question everything, and in fact, the entire pursuit of science is spawned from Christianity. The fact that there is something, that there's a rational mind. The early scientists believed that there were laws governing the universe because they believed in a lawgiver. It's not just stories. Okay, so then we only have, so do you believe Alexander the Great existed? What's your proof? Was Alexander the Great a legend, a myth, a real person? We only have stories, so what do you think? What about George Washington? We only have stories about him. Maybe a painting, but you could make up a painting. Or it could be from someone else. How about Cleopatra? These are all people that we only have stories of in your terms. So how do you discern what's real in history and what's not real? Not true, brother. Not true. We already disproved this. Say the extraordinary claims require the same amount of evidence as any other claim. It requires evidence. Okay. I mean, it's also I guess you could call it an extraordinary claim that Alexander the Great, before the age of 20, had conquered the entire known world. So, what's the extraordinary evidence there, right? You have to answer that question. How do you know about how do you accept anything from history as fact? Anything. And how's the lag, by the way? Am I lagging? That was a big problem on the last stream. Yeah, I don't agree. I do not agree that believing a duck can lay an egg and a person reading another's mind require the same evidence. Wait, I don't seem to agree that believing a duck... No, a person who claims to read a mind does not have a larger burden of proof. They have the same exact amount of proof needed. We've observed ducks lay thousands, millions of eggs over in our experience. And if we had observed a human read millions of minds in a convincing way with evidence, then we would believe that to be true. And again, yeah, okay, but if I had never seen a duck lay an egg, and if all of conventional knowledge told me that ducks gave like live birth, and then a friend came and said, I saw a duck lay an egg, I wouldn't believe him. I would need the same amount of evidence. Do you understand? And my friend saw a person read a mind is not evidence. That's not what I'm counting as evidence. You never answered the question, what counts as historical evidence? How do you know that Alexander the Great lived and did what he did, and deny that Jesus lived and did what he did? Yeah, one is easier to prove, but they still need the same amount of proof. Do you see what I mean? Like, you still need to observe it actually happen, right? That's the basis. I forget what yes you are is in reference to, but can you answer the question? What counts as historical proof? Why would you say that well, first of all, just answer. Do you believe in Alexander the Great or Cleopatra or Julius Caesar or anyone else in history? Do you believe in them? Do you believe they did what history purports them to have done? Okay, so why do you say that Jesus didn't do what he did when there's actually more attestation to Jesus historically than there is for Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar or Cleopatra? What basis are you denying the historical record on? Well, let's get some facts straight. Do you believe Jesus Christ lived and died as a man in first century Galilee, crucified by the Romans, yada, yada, yada? Do you believe in those historical accepted facts? Oh, and what Alexander the Great did is relatable? You've conquered the known world? You conquered the known world before you were 20? That's repeatable? Anyone's done that? Maybe Napoleon, but again, same question. How do you know he existed other than historical proof? Historical evidence, which, by the way, is not scientific evidence. Repeatable is scientific. How do you repeat the life of Julius Caesar? How do you repeat the life of Cleopatra? That's not the right type of evidence. You're trying to fit a square into a circular hole. I'm talking about historical evidence. Nothing is repeatable in history. Does that mean it didn't happen? What are you talking about? What kind of repeatable evidence can you give me for the life of Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar? Records, history, monuments, etc. Thank you. You've proven my point. God bless you, brother. We have records, history, and monuments, and all the rest, more so for Jesus than any of the other characters I've mentioned. Okay? Well, that's circular if you say what we already know about the physical world and reality. I mean, you're just a priori assuming what is true about the physical world and reality based on what you know, but you're rejecting the historical evidence. I'm talking about human versus non-human evidence. No, I'm talking about historical evidence, the exact same burden of proof on Julius Caesar, on Alexander, on Cleopatra as on Jesus. I'm not asking you to believe he was God, but I'm asking you to examine the historical evidence and consider what that means about his nature. And do we have historical evidence for anyone else who claims to be God? And does anybody even else claim to be God? Who isn't absolutely insane or a cult leader or kills people? Okay, Jesus lived. Yeah, you know that. You also know he died, right? Crucifixion by the Romans. That's well attested, not but just by Christian sources, by Jewish and Roman and Egyptian sources, right? Yes, Jesus was human, by the way. That is what he said. That is what I believe. That is what the whole church believed. Jesus was a human being in history, and that's what atheists believe, honestly, scholars, historians. So yes, they're both human. So now we have to address the claim, was Jesus, as he claimed, also God? Right? Now, the interesting thing is, we have the same amount of historical evidence to say that he was resurrected as we do for anything else. Okay? No, he did exist. Okay, well, we're not going to get anywhere if you think that he might not have existed, because that is one of the most sound historical facts of any, probably more so than the fact that, like, let me think of something, like, I want to say George Washington. That seems a little bold. I feel like we have a lot of attestation probably towards George Washington, but definitely he existed more so than Julius Caesar or someone like that. Okay? So that's not arguable. And we can go to the source if you want. We can go to Bart Ehrman. We can go to the scholars. These are all atheist scholars or agnostic, certainly not Christians. They all agree that he lived. They all agree that he died and was crucified by the Romans. And they all agree that everyone thought he was resurrected. Okay? Now, my question to you is, why did everybody think this to the extent that they would be burned alive? And their families killed. And not only think this, so you could think something and then lie to the Roman government and say, no, I don't think that, and then not be burned, right? But they were so sure of his message and his story and his resurrection, and they were so loyal and devoted to him that they were burned at the stake. So what explains that? What explains that? And it's not just a few people. It's not just a few hundred people from when he's around. It's the following 300 years after his death. But importantly, starting with the people that actually knew him. Starting with the eyewitnesses. Starting with the people that saw him raised from the dead. Right? Again, it's like the Gospels, I know you want to think they're like some sort of story or made up or created, but those are eyewitness testimonies, verified, historically verified, more so than almost any other source in history, to be from the eyewitnesses directly. So what do you say to those eyewitnesses? What were they think? What is your explanation for why they are so sure of his death and resurrection when that is not within their religious framework? It makes absolutely no sense for a first century Jew to believe that the Messiah would die, for one. They thought he was the Messiah, and that was predicted throughout the whole Old Testament. But the Messiah was supposed to lead a political victory and lead the Jews to Jerusalem, take back the Holy Land, rule over the earth, rule over the Romans, kick everyone out. That's not what happened. He died. Everyone thought, shit, this is not our Messiah. We really messed up. We messed up here. And then he came back to life, and they started dying for him. And they started proselytizing and spreading the word around the entire world and eventually overthrowing the Roman Empire. What explains that? When has that ever happened in history? And what could possibly explain that? Okay, well, you think about that for a second, brother. I want an actual, just to be clear, I want an explanation of how Jesus, or how everybody could believe that he resurrected to the extent that they would die for themselves and their families would die, and how the religion spread became so widespread, and why the eyewitnesses who were not predisposed to believing that their Messiah would come back to life would assert this with such veracity and spread it with such veracity. Those need explanations. I'll be right back. right. Seems like I lost you, my man. David, if you're still there, could I say a prayer for you? I've been going for 3.5 hours now, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But if you're there, and if you would allow me, I'd love to say a prayer for you and wish you on your way. I enjoyed our talk a lot. I thought it was great. All right, brother. Dear Lord, Father in heaven, please pray for David. Please send your son to him and reveal yourself to him and give him all the answers that he needs to know, and send yourself to him in dreams and visions and thoughts and people, and send Christians around him to just be kind and nice and lead him back to you. He's a great guy. He's open-minded. He's questioning. He's a nice guy. He wants to know the truth, but he doesn't know exactly where it is. Lord, please send that to him. In the name of your son, Jesus Christ, amen. Thank you, David. I enjoyed it a lot. And feel free to come back anytime. I'm going to be doing this every now and again. And hopefully we'll get some other people involved too. And we'll find out about some other arguments and stuff like that. So thank you, brother. Appreciate it.